I not now, but not after that glowing review.
After my glowing review of that book.
You went in, girl. Who's that?
No one.
What'd you order?
I didn't order anything.
Sounded like you did.
No, it didn't. It's not the Devil House. Devil House.
It's okay, baby. Get your appendages out of my eye line, please.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's correct. I think I said it right. Like I've been marinating on that, you know? I've been like a steak in a bag. Hello. Welcome back. It's the end of the month, February, the shortest month of the year, and yet we're still all amazed that it just shows up randomly, but it's here. Welcome back.
And I'm glad that I finished my whole TBR this month.
I did too.
On time.
Way before time. I finished my TBR like halfway through the month. I was like shocked.
Yeah.
So.
And I already started on next month.
Yeah. That's a whole separate video coming very soon. Check out that one. Well, welcome back. We are Self-Possessed.
I'm David.
And I'm Craig. And if you are new here, welcome to our channel. We're so glad that you're here. We are a gay couple in the Midwest. We're both teachers, and we love books. We love reading. We love talking about books, all types of books. So we're so glad you made it to our channel. And if you haven't had a moment yet, or you haven't thought about it yet, or it just hasn't, occurred in your brain, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up button, and then hit that subscribe button. And that way you'll be notified if we have new videos coming up, or if you want to join us on this little journey that we are taking. We're so excited that you're here, and we're so excited that you're coming back if you're coming back. So thank you for everything that you have given us so far. We're super excited and grateful for you. So what are we doing today?
Let's talk about some books.
So this is our February wrap-up, where we'll talk about all of the books we read in February, which you saw in our February TBR video. And if you haven't seen that one, I'll link it down below so that you can check that one out before you see this. And if you aren't aware, or you haven't been here before, since we're both teachers, rather than doing the typical star rating, we do book report cards. It's right there on the screen. This is our way of kind of giving a deeper analysis of kind of what we thought about the books and what we think the books bring. Of course, they're subjective and they're based on our opinions only. So if you love the book and we didn't happen to love it, that's totally fine.
It's okay.
Yeah,
really.
It's totally fine. And we're obviously willing to discuss with you in the comments. So if you liked one of the books that we didn't like or something like that, go ahead and comment below and let us know so we can kind of like banter back and forth with you. We'd love that. So 2 of the 3 books I read this month, I can maybe say that I didn't fully understand. It's some marination has happened. Is that a word?
It is now.
Marination?
Marination.
Like I've been marinating on that, I've been like a steak in a bag.
Steak in a bag.
Put it on a t-shirt. That's our merch. Steak in a bag. Well, I've been thinking about the books after reading them.
Yeah. There's one that I didn't necessarily hate, but I have been thinking about it since I finished it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that results in a very good book or not. If I'm still thinking about it later, like now. 2 of the books are short stories that I read. Are you a good short story reader?
I haven't really done many. I think I might have some maybe for next month. We'll see. One of my books is basically a short story, but it's self-contained, and I didn't finish Goblin, obviously, so that should say something.
Because I think I tend to look at short stories differently than regular novels that we read. It's very hard to establish a world in about 10 to 15 pages, and then move on to a next one. So I think that was a problem for one of the books that I had. It was just hard to create that world so quickly, and then you move on to the next one.
So we're going to reveal our book report cards for each of these and kind of talk through the grading that we came up with for each of them.
Okay, so
Should we start?
Yeah, let's start. So the first book that I started for my February TBR was Lauren Groff's Fates and Furies. I was really excited about this book because there was a lot of comments on the gram about it, and a lot of booktubers were reviewing this book. So I immediately got it, and I started reading it. It is a story about a marriage. It is told in 2 parts. Fates is the first part, and Furies is the last part. It's very hard for me to read books about marriages and secrets and all of that business, and not think about our own marriage in the mix. And I think there was a couple of times. The first half is really, really interesting because it's told from the husband's point of view, and then the last half is the wife's point of view. But it was once the wife's point of view comes into the mix, shit goes crazy in her part, and some things are revealed that you have to go back to the first part to kind of read and say, shit, I didn't think about that when I was reading it. And so I think in that way it is very successful, because I think good books do that for you. However, it was a little scary.
Yeah.
It was a little scary because you're thinking, well, what the hell is my partner being secretive about in our own marriage? So for plot development, pacing was 90. For character development was also a 90 as well. I think the husband's name is Lotto, the wife's name is Mathilde, and they were very complex characters, and I really enjoyed them, even though I was a little terrified by the wife. Theme and subject matter is 80, writing style is a 90, and reader engagement is 85. I did a lot of stops and starts with this, and then with that, I had to go back a few pages or a few chapters to kind of get back into it. So my final grade for this is 87 out of 100. But this is the book that I kept going back and thinking about over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because it's very, once you get to that second part, it's like, this is not, it changes. And I think that's what I kind of enjoyed about the book, but I was expecting for the whole book to be that way.
I'm going to start with my lowest grade, because why not? I have probably the most to say about this book. But my first one is A House at the Bottom of the Lake, A House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman, which is a short book, only about 180 pages. So I thought this would be a great thing to start off with. And I did not like this book. I did not at all. I think maybe the length has something to do with it. I feel like if it was longer, I would have been able to maybe more fully grasp what he was trying to say and do. Like, I still think after marinating on it, I understand the point of the book. I think I understand the message that he's trying to convey here, but I still don't like it. So the book is essentially about a young, 2 teenagers who meet each other in a small town, and they decide to go on their first date. And their first date is on like a canoe trip on a lake, basically. And they end up discovering like a second lake, and then they see a third lake. And when they get to the third lake, they kind of discover that there is a house at the bottom of the lake. That's not a spoiler. I'm not giving anything away because it's in the title. And they decide to kind of explore this house that is down there that has some weird things happening in it. Like, there are pieces and parts of the house that are not floating in water, like that are just there. And, they, as their relationship progresses, they decide to go explore more, and it's ultimately about what they find in the house. I know that this is like an allegory for like traumatic first love. Like, I think that's what it is, at least. Like, that's what I got from it. And how, like, when you've experienced something so magical together or so traumatic together that you are never going to be the same and you'll never look at the person in the same way. And now that I'm even saying it, I'm like, well, maybe I did get it. Maybe I did understand it. Maybe I got what he was trying to say, but I still didn't like it. It took me way too long to get through this little tiny book. So my grades for A House at the Bottom of the Lake, for plot development and pacing, I gave it an 80 out of 100. Like, things do move along and like you're experiencing new stuff all the time. But I don't know. I wasn't like invested at all. Character development, I gave it a 75 out of 100. These two characters you don't get a chance to know them really. Like, you don't get a chance to understand who they are, what they like. Like, there's not much time for you to develop them, which is why I think this could have been a longer novel. Theme and subject matter is my highest. I gave it a 90 out of 100 because even as I was just saying it, I think I do understand what the author is trying to say. And like, that's commendable. And I think that it's a worthwhile exploration, but I just don't know that it's done the best way. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Writing style is my lowest at a 60 out of 100. So I teach creative writing, and I think some of my students can write better than this. That makes me sound like a terrible person.
Wow.
But there are times where it just feels like it's like it's trying so hard to be like purposefully descriptive and purposely like obtuse, and there's just things about the writing that I was just like, but why? Like, why that word or why that phrase? Or like, it feels pretentious, right? It feels like overly pretentious, especially in a short novel like this. And then engagement, I put 70 out of 100 because, again, I finished one of my other books before I finished this one because I just didn't want to read it. So I wasn't super engaged. So that makes this the final grade for A House at the Bottom of the Lake a 75 out of 100, which is a C. Probably one of the lowest grades I've given to a book this year, since we've been doing this, since Yes, Daddy, I think.
But he wrote Goblin.
Yes, right, which is short stories.
But you didn't finish that one.
I didn't finish
either.
that one.
I'm surprised you got that one because.
Well, I got this because people on BookTube were talking about it, and people who I really admire, and thought that I would like it, and then I just didn't. And maybe it wasn't the right pick for me at the right time. Maybe I just would have felt different about it later. But yeah, I didn't like it. So womp womp.
I want to read it. So my next book is Lily King's 5 Tuesdays in Winter. I was obsessed with Writers and Lovers when it came out, and I reviewed it this past summer. When did I read it? This past summer? Mm-hmm. And was really, 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 really in love with that book. So it was very hard to jump into this because it was hard for me not to compare it to Writers and Lovers. It is a short story collection. I loved Writers and Lovers more. For plot development and pacing, I gave an 80. For character development, a 90. For theme and subject matter, an 85. Writing style, 100, because I love Lily King as writer. Mm-hmm. And reader engagement was 85. For the final grade of 88 out of 100, which is a B+. It's hard when you're reading a short story collection. It's so hard to establish a world in so few pages and then moving on to the next one. So I fell in love with a few of these worlds that Lily King established, and then she quickly kind of moves on to a next one, and it was just I was like, well, let's stay back there for a little bit longer. I think with a short story collection, for it to get a full A+, I think you need to be in love with all of the short stories. There was just a few that I was that I kind of liked. The third story in it I thought was just a very beautiful coming of age story that I connected to.
My next one is one I was very excited to read this book when I saw the cover. And in fact, I think this book has inspired us to do a whole video about books like this. So keep an eye out for that coming soon. My next one is Devil House by John Darnielle. Did I say it right? Darnielle? If you saw the TBR video, you know his last name was not a great thing for me. I couldn't think. Okay, this next book is one I just purchased for myself that I just got this last week, and that is Devil House by John and that's Devil House by... Okay, mine, Darnielle, Devil House by John Darnielle. I bought this book when I saw the cover, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I love like the vintage horror aesthetic. And then I read kind of what it was about, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. I'll give it a shot. Yeah, the cover is not... This has basically almost nothing to do with the book in a lot of ways. Like, I think this cover is insanely misleading. Mm-hmm. Like, so misleading. And I don't even think that the book was bad. I just think that this is selling you one thing, and then this is entirely different in a lot of ways.
By the cover, what did you think it was going to be about?
I thought it was going to be about, like, a haunted house. I mean, that's a house.
It's a bat, right?
It's a devil. It's like a little devil.
Oh. Are you sure? It looks like a bat. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a devil. It's like, yeah. I mean, it's like... So ultimately, the book is about our obsession with true crime, and our obsession with like the really nastiness behind the stories, and the way we abandon the humanity behind true crime in a lot of ways. And it is about a writer who buys a house that a murder happened in, and he has written several other books about true crime in the past. And so he's going to this house, he buys it with the intention of living in it so that he can, get more information about the story and write the story. And he's going backwards and reflecting on the other things that he's written. Like, there are several chapters that are going back to his other books that he's written. And then there is a twist at the end, which I'm not going to reveal, but that I was shocked by in a good way, I think. And also kind of like, well, what the hell have I been reading this whole time? Admittedly, I listened to the audio while I was also reading, so that helped a lot. And it has one of the things that I hate. We're jumping around to different perspectives and narratives. And then by the end, you don't even really kind of know who the narrator is, which is a problem for me. But my biggest gripe about this book is that this cover isn't essentially what I thought I was getting when I bought it. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to keep persevering through this book, and maybe it will get better, or maybe it will get more horrific. I really genuinely thought it was a horror novel. And there is discussion of horrific murders that happen, but it's not a haunted house, it's not a ghost story, it's not a possession story. The description talks about like the satanic panic thing from the 80s, and that's a huge part of it, but it's not what you think it is. I'm conflicted because I am still thinking about this book. Like, I think what it has to say about true crime is valid, and I think the reflection on our obsession with the gruesomeness of true crime is, and me saying that as someone who loves a horror novel and loves listening to true crime and watching true crime documentaries, I get what he is saying to us as a culture in this way, and also that what you read about true crime may not always be the truth, or it may be invented in some way.
Do you think if he would have titled it differently, or if the title was different?
No, I think the title can be this, because this is the name of the house that he buys. Okay. He buys the Devil House. That's what it's called. It's the overall aesthetic of the cover that bothered me more than anything else, because I'm like, this is not what I think many of us were thinking of buying when we bought it. So, okay, so for Devil House, plot development and pacing, I gave it an 80. It does jump around a lot. It does move pretty well, but it does jump around quite a bit, which I didn't love. Character development is a 70 out of 100. The characters in here don't really get enough space in the time to develop, and it is more investigative than anything else, so I don't feel like that really does much. The theme and subject matter is the highest score I gave, which is a 95 out of 100, because I think what he's trying to say is valid, and I think people should probably listen, but I don't think that this is going to piss people off. I think the cover is going to piss people off, especially given the contents of the inside. Writing style, I gave a 90 out of 100. For the most part, I really was engaged by what he was saying, and I really liked the way he was writing. There's a whole chapter that's like in Old English, which is weird and wackadoodle, and I don't know why it's there, but whatever. And then for reader engagement, I gave it an 85 out of 100. I read this in like 3 days. I got through it really fast. But I there were times where I was like, ugh, I don't want to finish this. But then I made myself, and so, yeah.
Have you seen anybody else complain about?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I actually just yesterday talked to Jordaline from Jordaline Reads on Instagram about it because she had posted if she should buy it. And I was like, don't do it. Mostly because I was like, well, what do you think it's about? And she told me, and then I was like, well, it's not about that. So if you think it's this one thing, it's not. And it's weird and it's hard to get into. And yeah. So my final grade is an 84 out of 100, which is a B. So,
which is kind of, I mean,
yeah.
I wonder if he had any say about the cover, because sometimes writers don't have
sometimes they don't.
a say about the covers, and the publisher probably just wants to sell books.
I mean, I guess I could make an argument that, like, ultimately, if I'm gonna look at the cover like a piece of art, I'm gonna say, okay, there is one side, there are two sides to the story, right? Like what you think you're getting and what people are perceiving, and then what actually happens. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's kind of what the cover is trying to do. Like, it seems this way, but maybe it's actually this way. I don't know. It's just, the cover is disconcerting, and I think many people I've talked to have felt the same way. I know even Gabby Reed started it, and she was like, well, what is this? I don't understand what's going on here, because it's not what we thought it was going to be. So, I'm sorry. I just ranted about this book for...
Could just did a whole video on this book.
Yeah. Well, and that's why the book has inspired us to kind of look at other books that have covers that are misleading and talk about like what we actually ended up thinking about them. And
my last book for our February TBR is Anthony So's After Parties, which is a collection of stories that talk about the queer Cambodian American experience. Out of the 3 books for February, this was the one I loved the most. For plot development and pacing, I gave a 90. For character development, I gave a 90. Theme and subject matter, a 90. Writing style, 100. And reader engagement, 90. Once again, it's to compare like 5 Tuesdays in Winter and this book, all of the stories are wrapped around the same world. Okay, so you get different characters, but you're still in the same space and still in the same like frame of mind, which is what I love the most about this book. So it wasn't just about one specific character or group. There was a variety of characters in this specific space. So that's what I loved about the book. And then also going back and reading a lot of stuff about Anthony So's life, and because he passed away just before this was published, so you never got a chance to see it. But he, going back and looking at his life and looking at other stuff he also wrote for the New Yorker, just finding those pieces, and you kind of see a few of the short stories that are in this book he kind of sold to magazines before this book was published. So going back and rereading those was really interesting, and just learning more about his life, because we just lost, I think we lost a very dynamic young writer. For a writer to make me go look for their other stuff, I think that says a lot about who that writer is and what their work kind of means to me. So
that's great.
Yeah. All right, Night Bitch.
That's David's nickname for me before he even bought me this book.
Before we go to bed, it's Night Bitch.
Yeah. So as he just said, the last book I read this month is Rachel Yoder's Night Bitch, and this is my highest grade of the month. I will reveal that to you. I did really enjoy this book, and I got through it in 2 days. Like, it's not very long anyway. It's like 240 pages. Mm-hmm. It's pretty short overall, but like, man, it just like goes and goes and goes and goes, and you're like, what is happening? Where is this going? How is this happening? I really, really liked it. And then by the end, there's another twist that I'm like, oh, I should have seen that coming the entire time, and I didn't. And I'm like, oh, but I'm still thinking about how I felt about it. Like, is it something that I think is good, or I don't know. Ultimately, this is about a mother who is the mother of a toddler, and her husband travels a lot for work, and she starts to, she calls herself Night Bitch because she wakes up in the middle of the night and is like angry all the time and like doesn't understand why, and then she starts growing this patch of hair on the back of her neck, and then like her teeth start to get sharper, and so she thinks she's becoming a dog, and so the whole book is about like giving into those impulses and understanding those impulses and like why they're there. I think ultimately it's about performance in a lot of ways, and like how we act in public versus how we act in private, and then like what's real and what's not real. And there's a lot of things in this book that I think are really interesting. And by the end, I think it will have you questioning what you read at the beginning. So my book report card for Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder is plot development and pacing a 90. It moves really quickly. There are some times where it kind of like, wanders off the beaten path, and I was like, what? But for the most part, great. Character development 95. You really feel for this woman, and you identify with Night Bitch, and you really want to like see where she's going. Theme and subject matter is the lowest, which is an 85, because ultimately I thought it was trying to say something about motherhood and being a mother and being a woman, and it is, but it's saying something bigger too. So yeah, I gave it 100 out of 100 for writing style. I just love Rachel Yoder's writing. I think it's amazing. I think she's great as a writer. I loved it. And then engagement, I gave it a 95. I couldn't put it down. Again, I finished it in 2 days. So that gives it an overall score of a 93 out of 100, which is an A. So that's an A for Night Bitch. As we said at the beginning, this is not quite the end of February, so we both had finished. I finished mine a week and a half ago. So I was done by the middle of the month, and I was like, well, I might as well start another book and see if I can get through it. And I did start another book. I didn't have it finished it yet, but I wanted to share it and talk with you about it a little bit to give you kind of my impressions of where we are so far. And then I'll probably include it on my March wrap-up when we get there, but it may not be on my March TBR, just depends. And you did the same thing, right?
I did.
Yeah. So I bought this book for myself like during the holiday season, and it's Hex by Thomas Oldhugult. And I have wanted to read it. I'd wanted to read it for a long time. It had been on my wish list for a long time. And I finally saw it at Barnes & Noble during the 50% off sale, so I bought it. And I was nervous at first. I'm about halfway through, kind of. But man, I'm telling you, this book is crazy. The idea behind it, the plot behind it is like brilliantly original, and I have not read something that takes, I don't know, it's both humorous, it's scary, it's weird, it's modern. Like, it takes this idea of like witchcraft and ghost stories and haunted towns, and like adds in this, like, it takes this idea of like voyeurism and being watched, and like how we use cameras to monitor our lives and technology, and then like, I don't know, it's just I really like it. I'm like I said, I'm only halfway through, but I am enjoying the heck out of it, and I love it right now. So I'm really happy with this book. If you like horror and you like things that are funny and weird, and like, I'm really loving this. And his new book just came out, so I'm excited to get that one as well. So yeah.
My next book, I was not expecting it to read it this month. I was going to read it for March, but it came early, and I just decided, well, I finished the other 3, so I might as well just dive into it. And that is Real Easy by Marie Rutkoski. Set in the world of the Lovely Lady strip club. It is a thriller. There is a detective element to it, which
I would not like.
You would not like.
Well, he had it open, and he was reading it in bed one night, and I looked over and I saw the chapter title was a detective, and I was like, well, I won't be reading that one.
Yeah. A dancer or 2 dancers are kidnapped right at the beginning of the book, and we kind of go through why they were kidnapped and this kind of search for both of them. But it takes you really into the world of exotic dancing, and which is what I loved about it the most. You can tell that the author actually did some research into it, because it's not as glamorous and exotic as people would think it is. She kind of goes all in, especially in the very, very dark underworld of it, which I appreciated. But I think overall this would have been an easy A, a real easy A.
Easy A.
For me.
Also, I want to, like, from a graphic design perspective, I just, like, kept looking at it while he was talking, and I was like, that's impressive. I know it's not hard to do this.
It's one of my favorite covers because, so first the coloring, but also, if you read it, there's a reason why there's, like, a grassy cover to it, but then if you look over a little bit, you see there's a clue right there, which I didn't realize until after I read it, and I was looking at the book. There's a clue right there on the book.
Well, that's a pretty successful month for us.
Yeah.
Like, for me, 3.5 books. For you, 4. So we're going to do a quick, like, rundown, just a review of our grades. I'll let David go first, and then I will do mine.
Okay, so Fates and Furies, I gave a B. For 5 Tuesdays in Winter, I gave a B+. And Anthony So's After Parties. Anybody else that has read this, please reach out because I want to talk to somebody about this. After Parties, I gave an A-. And the book that's not on the list, Real Easy, I gave an A.
An A?
Yeah.
For me, House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Matherman was a C. Womp womp. Devil House by John Darnielle was a B. And then Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder was an A. And I'm gonna make a prediction that I'm gonna give this an A, probably.
I'm excited to read that book.
Yeah, I think you'll like this one.
That cover is good too.
Well, and his new one is supposedly very gay. Too.
Oh, really?
So,
is he a queer writer?
I don't know.
Can you rate your overall reading month for February?
I mean, it's an A, B, C for the most part. So it's like it went from bad to better to best. Mm-hmm. So like it didn't start well, and I wasn't happy with that pick. But overall, I think it was pretty good. I'm pretty happy, and I finished all of them, which is. Given the last 3 months, that's a surprise for me, so I'll take that.
I think 3 is really good for me. 3 books a month is really good. I think anything more than 4, it's just not. I don't know.
Spoiler alert: I might try to be too ambitious in March.
Well, it's also a longer month, and then plus we also have spring break.
Yeah, I have 2 Fridays in a row off plus spring break, so I might have some more time. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Well, those are our February books. Thank you for coming back. We are Shelf-Possessed.
I am always David.
And I am usually Craig. If you haven't yet, check us out on Instagram.
At shelf_possessed, or reach out. Talk to me.
Yeah. He answers the DM, so if you want to
all the time.
If you want to chat with him, you should do that. And if you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe, turn on the bell notification, and you'll be notified whenever we put up new videos, which we have a lot coming for you. The one I'm the most excited for is this one's birthday is in like 2 weeks, and I've ordered him nothing but books for his birthday. Well, there's some things that are not books, and he's going to open them all on camera for you. He doesn't love this idea, but I think it's great.
Nope.
Yeah, but you get to see all of his birthday presents, and then maybe I'll have a little cake for him to sample on camera and blow out the candle.
We all know how much I love eating on camera.
It'll be great. So come back for that one. Our next video will be our March TBR, where you can kind of see I maybe went a little hog wild
for next month.
Yeah. So check that out. And again, thank you for coming back. We're so excited that you're here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.